Well, it's now time we go straight to the dailies and see what they have for us this awesome day, Thursday, the second day of July 2026. And for review today, as always, we have 7 papers. We have the Punch, the Vanguard, the Guardian, as much as Daily Sun, Daily Trust. We have the Nation and the Nigerian Tribune. You always know I enjoy starting with the Punch. On the Punch this morning, the lead story reads a whole lot of headlines seems to be on the front page of the Punch, and hence I'll be taking a critical look at all of them. But you also remember, anytime we tend to discuss about the papers, we always implore you that immediately we're done with it, please also grab a copy of them and read. Like I said on the Punch this morning, the read story reads, INEC, APC may clash over official Senate list. Riders to follow. APC replaces 7 Senate candidates amid ticket horse trading in 9 states. Party intervention forces Ala Ayedatiwa Akume Tunji Ojo into high-stake deals. INEC to recognize only candidates from monitored primaries according to the electoral umpire. And we're talking about post-primary row, but we can get that story up on page 2. God forbid Nigeria sees another civil war, and Obasanjo is warning on page 7. Fake agency scandal, presidency faces heat as federal government prosecute controversial DG. Falana forced presidency or GFCC to probe Gbajabiamila at DME. But I'll tell you to probe that story up on page 24. Revenue mobilization allocation fiscal commission submit political office holders pay review to Tinubu is a major one on page 9. But let's see if we take some other leading stories. World Bank approves $1.25 billion Nigerian loan despite debt concern. It looks as if we are still having more to borrow, but you can get that story up on page 20. Dealers await clarity as green vehicle tax begins, and we can understand more of that tax on page 9. PSC names 13 new AIGs, clears 93 police promotions, and you can get more on page 24. DSS arraigns 5 over alleged cover-up or silver whereabouts. It's also a screamer on page 9. But the story on page 4 and 5, sad it is. Lagos flood, resident fault Air Force fence, blocked drainage. And like I said, get that story up on page 4 and 5. But the picture of the day is that of the governor-elect. They're talking of that of Ekiti State, Biodun Oyebaji, when he presented his certificate of return as a governor-elect to Mr. President, and this took place just yesterday. Well, that's the much you can take from the Punch.
Let's check out stories making it to the headline on the Guardian newspaper this morning. And on the Guardian newspaper, the lead story reads, Nigerians hopeful of lower prices and relief as federal government slashes the reef is on page 6. And still on the front page below the plate name, INEC chair rules citizens' loss of confidence in the electoral process is on page 3. Nigeria's unrecorded spending hits 2% of GDP, says IMF official, is on page 22. Coup attempt, DSS Doc Silver Associates over ex-governor's whereabouts, a major one on page 3. Let's see if we can get more of the leading stories still on the front page of the Guardian newspaper. And still on the front page, Obasanjo warns against conflict, says 1967 civil war triggers persist, is on page 4. Flooding, Lagos begins removal of illegal structure, vows stricter enforcement, is a screamer on page 12. APC faces backlash over revised National Assembly tickets on page 6. And the NUT suspends strike, directs Oyo teachers to resume work today. Can get more of that on page 5. Next year bemoans worsening insecurity despite 3.15 trillion naira defense budget. Is a major one on page 3. Nigeria secures fresh $1.7 billion World Bank facilities amid rising debt concern. Is more of a business story on page 22. And the picture of the day, there are 2 major ones, but we'll go with the first one, talking about the aftermath of Tuesday's heavy downpour and flooding in part of Lagos that took place just yesterday. That's much we can take on the Guardian this morning.
Let's quickly run to the Nation as we continue our review of the papers. And like I said, on the Nation it is. And on the Nation newspaper, INEC over 93 million voter registrar contains names of deceased. And well, it looks as if it's more. And then we passed FCT Ekiti poll test, says Amoputon. But I'll tell you to get that story up on page 3. And let's see if we take some other leading ones. Presidency awaits outcome of criminal matter against Adeniyi Matthew. It's also on page 3. Tinubu exit benefit scheme, new parts with workers. It's also on page 20. DSS Array 5 for concealing silver's whereabouts is also a screamer on page 2. Petrol price NMDPRA puts marketers under close watch. And you can also get more of that story up on page 3. Let's see if we take some other leading stories. And government slashes custom levies on imported vehicle. It's a story on the front page, but you can read it up on page 3. Continue reading it. CBN revokes 46 microfinance bank license. And I license you to read that story up on page 7. DSS hands over ex-minister Nnaji to ICPC after arrest. It's also a criminal on page 6. And the picture of the day for me is that of the presentation of a certificate of return by no other but the Ekiti State Governor to President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the presidential villa just yesterday. That's the much you can take from the nation.
And still on Dailies, let's check out stories making round on the Nigerian Tribune newspaper. And on the Nigerian Tribune, the leading story reads, Presidency opens up on scandal rocking PEAC Gbajabiamila's office is on page 2. And still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune, above the plate's name, alleged coup. DSS arraigned 5 civil associates over its whereabouts is on page 4. ICPC detains Naji over alleged certificate forgery. Can get more of that on page 4. And still on page 6, CBN revokes license of 46 microfinance banks. Wow, we can get more of that on page 6, like I said earlier. Then let's we can get more of the leading stories still on the front page of the Nigerian Tribune. INEC to introduce downloadable PVC's full online voter registration is a screamer on page 3. Giant schools revelation exposes Tinubu's power debt deception, according to article is on page 4. Extend tax filing deadline, LCCI urges NRS is on page 7. And on health, scientist engineer hookworms to deliver medicine is on page 16. Some causes of civil war still with us, says Obasanjo is on page 16. Court grants Aliso Madueke's request to present UK court judgment acquitting her. Can get more of that on page 3. Also threatens strike in Kebbi and 5 other states. It's a major one on page 5. And let's quickly look at the picture of the day. The picture of the day is that of the return of the presentation of certificate of return by Oyembaji to the president following his re-election in June 20th election at the presidential villa in Abuja just yesterday. That's what you can take on the Nigerian Tribune.
Let's run to the Daily Sun. On the mine is raining. I feel the Daily Sun will give us more of the light to be. Eligible voters now to download PVCs online. INEC says full online registration available also. Election timetable dispute. Court reverses judgment in commission's appeal. And I appeal with you to read that story up on page 6 and 19 of the Daily Sun. IMF Nigerians reported over budget spending worth 2% of GDP, urges greater fiscal transparency. And you can get more transparent understanding of that news on page 22. My presidency will unite Nigeria for robust capital or human capital development. Peter Obi is giving us that assurance on page 26, if elected. Let's see if we take some other ones. Presidency brands Adeyemi con artist insists alleged council fake, says Gbajabiamila was first to blow whistle. It's on page 27. Coup plot, 5 ex-governor Silva's associate arraigned over concealment of his whereabouts. It's on page 4. World Bank approved fresh 1.25 billion loan for Nigeria dollar loan. CBN revokes operating license of 6 microfinance bank for a regulatory requirement failure. And don't fail to get more information on page 2 and 25 of the Daily Sun. Federal government unveiled initiative to track every learner from primary school to NYC as Nigerian backs NYC skill reform, raise fund camp concerns, and all of that is also on page 26. Well, the picture of the day is that of a whole lot of dignitaries during the unveiling of manual for exceptional brilliant underage students admitted for 2025-2026 section in universities at the National Engagement on Inclusive Higher Education and Artificial Intelligence. And that very presentation played out in Abuja just yesterday. That's the much you can take from the Dailies now.
Trust you're having a good time in your dailies this morning as we look at Daily Trust newspaper. And on Daily Trust, the leading story reads, Fatom Council, Presidency clears Gbajabiamila amid concern is on page 3 and 4. And still on the front page, 10 killed in fresh attack on Benue community. There's a disturbing one on page 15. As CBN revokes license of Merchant Microfinance Bank and 45 others. A major one on page 19. And let's see if we can get more of the leading story still on the front page of the Daily Trust newspaper. 2027, why APC replaced candidates. There's a major one on page 10 and 11 of the Daily Trust, and the picture of the day is that of the residents of Castinala, local government of Benue State during a protest yesterday. That's much we can take on the Daily Trust.
The Vanguard will be the next and last paper for us to look at as it concerns the dailies this morning. And on the Vanguard newspaper this morning, the lead story reads, why APC ditched Suswan, 25 National Assembly candidate. Suswan was sacrificed to please Akume, says source. Party moved to resolve ticket crisis. And there will be no crisis for you to get more information on page 5. CBN revokes 46 microfinance bank licenses on page 8. Was on page 15. Nigeria must not witness another civil war, says Obasanjo. Seized assets. Court says the Ziani request to tender evidence of acquittal in UK is also making a round on page 7. Discourse and expose on Herbert Macaulay, the first Nigerian nationalist, is on part 2 by Bode George, is on page 14. Let's see if we take some other leading stories. My presidency will unite Nigeria for human capital development, Peter will be on page 9. But a story before page 9, NYSC deployment to security challenge states will be guided by risk assessment, says Tinubu on page 8, like I said. Let's see if we take some other major one. Also a mini screamer on the front page of the Vanguard. State police mechanism to stop governors' abuse underway, according to Senate, as governors promise speedy approval. I approve you to read that story up on page 26. School adoption or your teacher suspend strike is also making the round on page 15. Alleged coup plot, DSS docks 5 for hiding ex-governor Silva's whereabouts is also on page 6. And well, let's see if we just get Mr. and Mrs. column. Mrs. will always have the first say, ladies first. I told you my parents are coming to visit. You did not even show any sign of interest or excitement. I'm surprised at you. Mr. responded, I'm sorry, dear. How about a 21-gun salute? For the parent in-laws coming? Well, anyway, I doubt that. But the picture of the day, I'll rather take the bottom one. The meeting between the governor of the central bank, Mr. Olayemi Cardoso, with the Minister for Education, Mr. Olatunji Alasa, during a strategic meeting held in Abuja just yesterday, Wednesday. But that's the much you can take from all the dailies put together. I will always employ you, as usual, that if you find any that you really fancy, do us a favor, go grab a copy and get abreast with it. But you do know, next will be dialogue right here on Viewpoint on Atlantic TV.